Hi, and welcome to the Dinner Agenda. This is Bo.
And this is CeeLo.
You sound like you're in a really good mood, CeeLo.
I don't know, I just felt like singing.
You did you?
Yeah, I don't know why.
What's going on with you? Yeah,
No,
what's going
nothing
on?
terribly exciting. Had an awesome, day the other day. We did a golf tournament for a friend's 50th birthday party. It was so
Very
much
nice.
fun. It was so much fun. Yeah.
That's good.
Mhm.
Good. I don't really know much about golf, but do you win? Like, can you win golf, or is it
Um,
just based on points? Or
do I win? No.
well, I don't know. Is there like such a thing as winning in golf? Or I have no fucking
There is
clue.
winning. So, like, each
Okay.
hole, it tells you what par is. So par is you can take 4 shots to get it in the hole or 3
Mm.
shots depending on the size of the hole, okay?
And how are you at getting things in a hole?
I'm horrible at it, but it's one of those games that it's like, "This sucks, I hate it, why am I here? Fuck this game," and then you hit one and you're like, "I love this is awesome, I am so skilled." So you just
I
kind of
am so
it
skilled.
that is like you that's the ebb and flow for me.
Got
So
it.
I call
Got it.
myself a fair weather golfer because 'cause I'm there really
Okay.
for the sunshine and beer cart and maybe, a little bit of walking around exercise, although I don't think my doctor would classify golf as exercise, especially if you're driving around in a cart drinking beer, so it is what it is, you know?
I hear you. Hey, you know what? We can classify exercise as we want, and to me, that is exercise. So you're good. Good on you, CeeLo. Good on you.
Yeah, good times, good times. How are the renos
Yeah.
going?
Oh, they are definitely underway. They're getting closer to getting finished each week. So we've actually got the flooring all down
Yeah.
now on the main floor. Oh my gosh, CeeLo, it looks so good. It
Ooh.
looks so good. I was so stressed about, not being able to envision how it would all come out, and it's just beautiful. It's stunning. I really, really like it. And so we're having the countertops, the quartz countertops going in soon. And I'm really kind of looking forward to seeing how that
Yeah,
looks.
no kidding.
But I have this, I, I don't know if you remember in my kitchen, I have this old, original 1950s kitchen table
Yes.
with the red chairs, and it's in such pristine condition. And I absolutely adore this vintage,
Yep,
retro, whatever we want to call it, table. With the new countertop, though, we are creating a breakfast bar,
yep.
right? Because we had to buy like 2 slabs of quartz, so it just makes sense to utilize as much of it as we can instead of it being thrown out, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna be doing this breakfast bar, but then I'm not gonna have room for this beautiful table, and I'm a little bummed at that. I have to say, like, I actually had a conversation with Dave one evening in bed where I was like, "Look at maybe we don't do the breakfast bar. Maybe we just do a regular quartz countertop the same size that we have right now, and then I can keep my beautiful little table." And Dave's like, "But you know what? I don't think we should be planning our renovation around one retro table." You know what I mean?
It's
So,
tough when
but
you
I
love
do
a
love it.
piece so much to not plan
I
it all
do.
around it, but I'm
Mhm.
pro breakfast bar. I think it's awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, I think for the kids it'd be great, but I I love that little table. Is there anywhere else that you can use it or kind of
Mhm.
put it
Not
as
really. I think if I had been an old-fashioned Italian woman, I would probably have had a full-on kitchen in the basement as they normally do,
yeah,
but I don't. I have just a normal recreation room in the basement, like big TV screen, blah, blah,
yeah.
blah. It wouldn't go down there. It would literally just be sitting somewhere as, as nothing. So I'm gonna
What
have
about
to
if
sell it,
you,
but I
like,
am going to.
convert it into an office desk and put it in your office or something?
Oh,
Like,
CeeLo.
maybe something fun like that where you have your little retro corner.
Oh my god, wait a minute. Just a second here. Maybe we make it a games table
Oh, yeah, baby.
in the basement.
Yes, total.
Okay, so you just made me okay, I'm gonna have to think about this. You might just have saved my table, I'll have to
Yeah.
see. You know what? Let me have a conversation with Mel and see what she thinks about the green velvet poker table topper and see if this would be a good gaming table. Get her opinion.
I think you should suck it. You
I should
should
suck
suck
it.
it. I can get her to look on the auction and see if she can find another green velvet, like,
No,
table topper. Okay.
no. I do not want your wife bringing goods over to my house now
Oh,
from this
come
freaking
on.
auction. No,
Did I tell
no.
you about the she bought things that she thought were anti-snoring to help you to stop snoring, okay?
What?
And she
What did
bought
she buy?
4 I don't even know what they are, okay? And apparently neither did she. The story goes on. So 4 boxes of these things come home, and I'm like, "What are these?" And she's like, "Oh, they're things to help you stop snoring." I'm like, "You need 4 boxes? Like, what do Okay, fine." So she's like, "Take 2 up north, keep 2 here. It's awesome." So when I'd opened up the
What are they though?
trailer a little
Like things that go up your nose? What are they?
well,
Explain what they.
hold on. 'Cause
Okay,
when I
okay.
took the 2 boxes up north and I was kind of, like,
Mhm.
unpackaging it, and I'm actually reading the label, and it's, like, for a CPAP machine. It's not even like we don't have a CPAP machine. Anyways. So I saw my brother this week, and I gave them to him because he has I don't even know if they fit his CPAP machine or if he needs them, but I'm like,
Oh
"Here you go.
my
Have
fuck.
at it."
CeeLo, like she just went and bought
She
them off the auction. This is
Yeah.
great. This is great.
She
Oh my god.
Yeah, she's very anti-snoring, so anything like, she's gonna put a pillow over my head maybe at some point if I if I ever if I ever die in my sleep, make sure they do an
Uh-huh.
autopsy on me to make sure I wasn't suffocated, okay?
Okay, got it. Oh fuck. You know what? This I know you hate it, but it is so fucking entertaining to me that Mel has found online auctions. It is
Well,
fucking
on the plus
awesome.
side, she did buy another ice maker
Oh,
for a cousin
CeeLo.
for a cousin,
Oh, for a
yeah,
cousin, not for
no,
you
not
guys.
for us.
Okay, okay,
And it is handy. It made a lot of ice. It's
okay.
perfect. It's my own
Well, you know
proof.
what? Then maybe I should ask her to look at, if she can see any if through her auction, viewing, if she sees what tables like the one that I have go for, just so that I have an idea if I do end up having to sell it.
Oh, well, for that, you might wanna go on, like, Kijiji or Facebook Marketplace or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It's hard though because it's one of these, it's kind of a little unique. It's got those I'm gonna have to look up the right terminology, but it's got these 2 little red flowers, which is a little bit more rare,
Oh,
of a design for this type of table.
got
So
it.
I haven't been able to find anything equivalent, but we'll
It's
see.
so cute.
I'll
I
see.
love the fact that it looks like it belongs in a diner.
Me too, and I just love it, and it's original. It was owned by this one woman, with this one woman's grandmother, and then it passed down to her. So it's been in that person's family forever, and I was able to purchase it from them. I love it. It's like the coolest frickin' thing ever.
Yeah.
And I love sitting at the table. Yeah, so I'm a little bit bummed about that, but you know what? The Gotta do renos, so I can't I gotta move
I
forward,
like the
right?
basement card table idea. That's totally doable.
Yeah, I'll have to see if I can make that work.
Yeah.
I'll see.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, I will. Okay, so what's on the agenda today, Silo?
Oh my gosh, we have such a great topic today. So today we're going to talk to a special guest about her experience as her kid came out as trans when he was about grade. So it's like a grade 6 through grade 8 journey. All right. Well, I'm super excited to introduce Laura, our special guest for today. And
Welcome.
Laura's
Hello, hello.
hi, hi. Laura's son is trans. And so we're going to talk a little bit about her family's journey and her experiences that she's had over the last few years and what that looks like, what that feels like, some of the bumps along the way that I'm sure you've had. And yeah, so welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me. Super happy to be here.
Awesome sauce.
We are super excited. So, Laura, I'd like to just quickly start with what your definition of a transgendered person is, just so that our dinner guests can understand a little bit more while we kind of get into this topic.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I figured what better than Wikipedia? So Wikipedia describes a transgender person. The term is often shortened to trans. Is someone whose gender identity differs from that typically associated with the sex they were assigned at birth. There's all different kinds of trans people. Some seek medical support and changes, some do not. Everybody's kind of got their own journey. And for sure, I think today I'll be speaking from my experience. I'm not representing all parents of trans kids, and but really happy to share some of the great news and some of the challenges we've had along the way. So
that's great.
Absolutely. So how old is your son now?
He is going to be 15 in August, and he's in grade 9. And then this journey started with him, I would say grade 6. So, about 3-ish years ago. And it's kind of been interesting since the beginning.
The teenage years are interesting to begin with, never mind an added layer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm curious, Laura, like how did you discover this? How did he discover this? Yeah. How was this first brought to your attention?
Absolutely. So in grade 6, my son was transitioning to a new school. He was accepted to this alternative school within the Toronto District School Board, which we were all really excited about. And that school just has grade 7 and 8. And it's considered an alternative school. So we were really excited for him. It was going to be a really great opportunity. And so we were out thrifting late that summer prior to school starting. And he was looking in the men's department at vests and some ties and some other atypical masculine items. And I didn't really think anything of it because I was like, whatever, girls can wear whatever they want and it's generally okay. My only restriction was like he was looking at a couple things that were like way too big, and I'm like, no, dude, like let's get stuff that actually fits. I didn't really think anything else of it. I was both my kids have never been super girly, so we've been pretty open about not sticking to typical female stereotypes and all those different things. So I didn't really think anything of it. I was like, just make sure you like it and it actually fits you. And that was kind of my criteria. And so we picked up a couple things and I didn't really think twice about it. And then he went to school. And I think sometime it was late September, early October, we're driving home. And I've heard this of other parents that he was speaking to me from the backseat of the car, like not making eye contact, not a little bit of a less pressure environment. Like it was intimate. It was just the two of us, but not having to make eye contact, etc. And so he said to me, he said, and I'm just for those listening, regardless of when the person was born or their gender at whatever point, historically, you just still refer to them by their preferred name or their current name, and you use their pronouns as well. So right. Even when I speak about him as a baby, I still say he, him. So just if anybody's wondering who's listening. So he said to me, he said, I think I might be, he says, I think my pronouns might be they, them. I think I might be kind of non-binary. I can't remember exactly what he said, but I remember like he wanted his pronouns to be they, them, and that like blasted in my brain because I was like, oh. The school was interesting. There were a lot of really different kids. There were a couple kids in his class who were also identifying as non-binary, and a few other kids on sort of the diversity spectrum. And my initial thought was probably not the best one, but I was like, okay, that's cool. And I kind of said to him, I said, I'm a little worried that you're maybe jumping on a social bandwagon a little bit, and maybe can we give it a couple more weeks and see if the feeling really sticks? And I said to him, I said, I know there's a couple kids in your class who've been sort of non-binary or trans for a while now. This is what he told me. So I don't want, I was worried about the perception of his classmates, and not necessarily I was in the right thought, but my concern was the perception of his classmates thinking that, oh, he's jumping on a non-binary bandwagon, and what if he changes his mind, and all those things. Like, I kind of was jumping to conclusions right away. I wasn't really upset. I wasn't angry. I just, in my brain, I was concerned.
Just like thoughtful about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not necessarily the right thoughts. Like, in hindsight, I think I would have been more like, wow. And I think I did thank him for telling me, but I think I would have just focused on, like, how are you feeling, and all that stuff, and being, not as limiting, maybe more openly supporting, I guess.
But I mean,
yeah,
hindsight is 2020, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I actually have a question for you, Lara. So, I mean, you talk about, you had, I guess, 2 children, and
yeah, Kai has a younger sister.
Yeah. Had you ever had exposure to anything like this prior to your son letting you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. So for me, not too much. At work, there were a couple people who were out and open. And so so I kind of had some visibility there. Of course, Caitlyn Jenner and a couple other actors who were trans. So kind of seeing that from afar, but nothing in my immediate sphere. So all of my exposure to trans people was definitely kind of peripherally. And, the acceptance piece has never really been an issue for us. It's just the adaption piece. I think that's really been a challenge for us. I know that's not true for everybody's journey. Getting used to using they, them pronouns was really hard, because in English, you're referring to the person in the third person, but it's, so your brain is wrapping around that. So that was the challenge, but yeah, there was little to no exposure, no direct exposure. So it's just new for both of us.
Yeah. I find it fascinating that, I mean, because, I think it's a known thing that not all families are going to be as supportive of anything that is what they consider out of the norm for their children.
For sure.
And the fact that you hadn't been that exposed to this, and your first reaction was, okay, I need to make sure that this is legit, and I need to make sure that you're safe.
Yeah.
Instead of any negative kind of connotation of like, no, that can't be. And, so, I mean, I applaud you for that, because that was a very first instinctual reaction that you had. So when you say, looking back, you think that you might have handled it a little bit differently, I would say, I don't think you could have, but I think you handled it smashingly, given the circumstances. Absolutely.
We're a British podcast now.
Smashingly, Laura.
I was going to say, as soon as you said, we were in the car, and I'm like, oh my God, I have the best chats with my kids in the car, because it's usually just me with one of them, and we're driving home from practice or something. And that seems to be when I get all the goods out of them, where they're willing to share kind of something.
Yeah.
The other thing that you said, which I find is kind of curious, and it made me think, when I came out 800,000 years ago, when I came out a long time ago, one of my sisters said to me, well, it's all good, but if you change your mind, right? And so the inkling is, like, this is brand new information to me receiving it. I just got it seconds ago, but for the person telling you, they've been thinking about it for a really long time. Right. Yeah. And so that's a kind of that awkward moment where it's like brand new for you. And how do you kind of quickly adapt, especially when it's your kid talking to you, where your immediate go-to, hopefully for all good, loving parents, is, making sure they're safe, talking to them, making sure they know it's okay to explore and figure it out.
Yeah. And in hindsight, and speaking to him, like, he knew where I was coming from. He didn't entirely disagree, but I think, like, for sure it could have gone way worse. Absolutely. In my brain, it couldn't have, because I'm, I feel like I've had a lot of really great exposure at work and in public, and trans people, like any other, either non-binary, gender or sexually diverse person is a person, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
you don't have to always understand it, but like learn to accept it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Be
So
kind, have
so
empathy.
yeah, actually, always, yeah, like lead with empathy, lead with curiosity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
so he was okay with my reaction. Like he didn't disagree, he didn't protest. I don't know if he felt that he could have. For sure, I guess it could have gone worse.
And sorry, Laura, how old was he at this point?
So he was,
This is grade
I
6,
guess,
right?
yeah, like 12ish. Yeah,
12.
going
Okay.
into grade
Okay.
7. Yeah, so he was in grade 6. So maybe, yeah, I guess 12ish. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and so I think he just turned 12 because yeah, his birthday's in the summer. So yeah, I think he just turned 12.
Mhm.
So yeah, so it was a bit of a shocker. And then I said, like let's kind of let the dust settle and revisit it. If you're still feeling this way, cool. I said, do you want to tell dad or do you want me to tell dad? And he's like, can you tell dad? And I'm like, okay, no problem. And my husband was okay with it. He had way less exposure, etc. I think both of us were kind of like,
What do we do?
okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
And we didn't like jump to conclusions in terms of like, oh, we have to put him on testosterone right away, or oh gosh, now we have to worry about top surgery or whatever. No, it was just because he was identifying as non-binary, so
Yeah.
so it was just like, okay, them they pronouns, and we were both, my husband and I were both like, wonderful, okay, let's try this.
Yeah.
And so we did. Like we didn't always get it right, and I think also for anybody interacting with somebody who might have different pronouns, or they're transitioning or their pronouns have changed. I think the big learning is like, don't make a big deal out of it. Take the correction. Oh, sorry, and then like acknowledge it and then
Right.
keep going.
Yeah.
And so we would do that, and he would catch us, and we'd be like, oh, they, or like
Yeah.
they and them, and then trying to adapt. And then it so that went on for a while. My mom was pretty good about it. My in-laws were kind of not as good about it. All the friends and stuff, I think it was just an adjustment for everybody. Nobody really cared, but it was just like, oh, I have to make this switch in my brain to use the correct pronouns. So that took a little bit of practice for everybody for a little while. And the feeling stuck. I revisited it with him a few weeks later, and he was like, yeah, this is something I want to do. We were like, okay.
Yeah.
And we told the teacher, in subsequent conversations later, he said he was using different pronouns at school already. So the school, the Toronto District School Board was quite, we've never had any issues. They've always been really inclusive. The teachers are great. They updated report cards, no problem. So it's always been really good. So at some point, I don't remember exactly when it happened. I think it was over the winter, like January, February, maybe ish. It was like, okay, now my pronouns have changed to he, they, or they, he. And we were like, okay. So the he was a little bit, we were kind of gravitating to the he, because we were like, okay, we can do, this is easier linguistically, and always trying to,
Of
do
all
the
the
they.
things that you're faced with, you're like, but the grammar is not right in my
Yeah, well,
brain.
it's just,
Yeah.
it's just in how your brain's programmed, right?
I know.
So,
Well, I'm going to ask you if we can just deviate for one
yes,
second, just
absolutely.
to help me understand this. So, when you use the pronoun they,
Yeah.
why? Like, what is that? Because you identify as both? Yes,
So
or
it can
neither?
depend on the
Okay.
person. It can really depend on the person.
Okay.
So I think in his case, my son's case, it was like he didn't specifically identify as one or the other. Kind of felt in the middle. And gender really is a social construct, right? Like what says, aside from physical anatomy, what makes a woman, what makes a man, right? So is it a short haircut and a tailored shirt, right? Like, does that make somebody a man? Does it as a suit? Like there's all these stereotypes, right? And these gender constructs, and we know from hundreds of years ago, boys wear pink and girls wear blue. Like there's all this stuff, right? So and it's changing and evolving as well. So so it was like, what do you feel like? And so he was in the them they space for a while. His clothes we kind of were switching to more sort of gender neutral clothing. sort of like not specifically masculine, not specifically girly, kind of neutral colors.
An androgynous kind of fit.
Yeah, all that stuff,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, okay, cool. So you know, he wasn't wearing like super skinny jeans and none of that stuff anyway, so it was kind of easy to kind of evolve out of that. And then sometime over the early winter, it was like, okay, now my pronouns are they, he, and we were like, okay. And then around May, June, closer to Father's Day, he was like, no, my pronouns are he, him. And he was starting to kind of prefer sort of either more masculine stuff or clothing and things like that.
Right.
And we were just kind of going with the flow. But then summer hit, it was like May, June. So now we're having to like, okay, well, what do we get you to wear for the summer? He's my oldest, so kind of like he picks the clothes and my youngest kind of inherits some of them. So this was like a whole new, because for 12 years I was not shopping in the boys department in any store.
Right.
So kind of had to learn that whole experience. And then at some point, I think it might have happened at the beginning of that year. We had a few mental health providers engaged in our family for a couple different reasons. And then we were referred to a really great program with Central Toronto Youth Services. It's called their, what is it? Families in Transition, and they emphasize the TRANS. And it was a really, really great program. It was free. It was, they had a group therapy for adults or the parents, and they had a separate group for the kids. Not all adults participating in the program had kids in the program. There were a couple adults in our group who had like already adult grown children. And so they were trying to educate themselves so they could kind of reconnect with their kids. Whereas a few of us did have underage, like minor children. So, and most of them participated in the youth program. So he was connecting with non-binary and transgender youth weekly, and we were connecting with parents of trans or non-binary kids weekly. So it was a really amazing program. They do have some online resources. We were just able to meet them. We reached out to them. We did have to wait a little bit because they go through different sort of cycles and times of the year. But it was a really great experience. We learned a lot. It dispelled a lot of our concerns and fears in terms of, you know, will he be okay? Kind of what does medical support look like? Sort of what's, you know, how is he self-determining person in the medical system? At what age? So all of these just sort of, we went really deep. Each week was a different topic. Initially, it was a lot of understanding what being trans and non-binary is, and what does gender mean, and versus sexuality, and because those are two very, very different things. How I feel about myself as a person and my gender is different than who I'm sexually attracted to. And for those who might not be aware, that those are not necessarily linked. So yeah.
Absolutely.
So, okay, I've got a couple of questions for you. One first, and then I'll let CeeLo ask her a question because I can see she wants to.
Fine.
And I'm just blathering on, so I'm not helping.
No, it's all good.
I'm
good.
So fascinated by this. I love this story. I love learning about this. The question that I have is, so you had made a comment about how for the first 12 years you were shopping in the girls department for both of your children, and now all of a sudden it's switching. Did you have a period of time where you actually mourned the loss of having a daughter?
That's a really great question. For a really long time, my husband and I, our attitude was like, and we said this vocally, like we modeled, we have a good relationship. We've been together a very long time, even before getting married and having kids. So we had a super solid relationship. So we just really tried to model our relationship to the kids, and the messaging from us was like, don't grow up to be a jerk, and don't partner with a jerk.
Right.
Right. Like, like the person,
Yeah.
the person you partner with should, you know, treat you well, should treat you like an equal, should respect all these things about you. At no point did I say to my kids, oh, you have to get married. You have to have like, I was never like, oh, my girls are going to grow up and I'm going to be mother of the bride and we're going to have this sort of 50s classic experience of life. And I said to the kids too, I'm like, you don't have to get married, and you definitely don't have to get married and have kids.
Yeah, see, that's the mother of this generation, of this time. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? That's
Yeah,
not
for sure.
how
Yeah,
we grew up.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
for sure. And so and I think I did get some of that progressiveness from my exposure in my workplace, and just kind of being open-minded and not sticking to stereotypes. I wasn't super like, oh, you can be absolutely anything you want. I wasn't against that, but I was like, whatever you want to do, you have to get an education, you have to apply yourself, right? Like, you're not going to wake up one day a rocket scientist. You're not going to wake up one day, you know, and you know, I don't know, a famous painter or something. You got to put in the, whatever you do, you got to put in the work, kind of thing. And so I don't want to say that I kind of mourned it. It was just like, okay, now who is this person? And kind of, I used to know this person, but now I maybe don't know this person as well as I thought I used to. But at their core, your kids are your kids. They're, you know, he's a good kid. He's curious. He's articulate. He's pretty smart. But it's just like, okay, now there's this exterior part, and it's how he feels about himself as well. So, you know, the gender dysphoria wasn't necessarily always a daily issue. But sometimes, you know, even now it's like he doesn't want to, you know, because there's been no changes to his body, right? So he doesn't want to see himself in the mirror. So sometimes it's like, okay, leave the lights off, get in the shower, take off, you know, get undressed. Give me your clothes, and then like, so how do we support that? Sometimes it's what he wears. Sometimes he wears a binder, which is a garment that sort of compresses the chest. Early on, he would wear like a sports bra, and then he realized he didn't like the way that felt. And so it's been a bit of a journey in terms of like, okay, what clothing does he feel confident in? Right. And I initially, going back to that time around Father's Day where we started to switch up the clothing, I was like, well, why can't you just wear this shirt? And it's not a big deal. It's not pink and blah, blah, blah. And he said something that really resonated with me, and it's kind of stuck with me. He said, I don't feel confident in those clothes.
Right?
Oh.
I
was
love
like,
that. I love that.
Yeah. And that, because I went through a period where I wasn't happy with how I looked and how I felt. And I took, you know, I was working out and taking care of myself. And that, like, it really, like, it rung like a giant bell in my head when he said that. Well, and I was like, and it completely changed my perspective on it too. It was like, nope. You know,
you're doing everything you can as a parent to send your kid out the door feeling confident and capable.
Yeah.
And by limiting them in those clothing choices, you know, non-binary, trans, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you're somehow limiting them in those choices and that almost that experimentation, because I found that certainly with my daughter that she'll go out the house and I'm like it's a little bit out of character maybe, right? But she's testing it out. She's trying it out. She's, you know, figuring out whatever, you know, works for her and how she feels good. And you know, the days when they walk out the door and they're like, that's right. Like, I know I feel good today. Right. So you want them to go out the door like that.
Yeah, they're like John,
you know, it's
strutting their stuff down the street. Right.
Total.
Yeah. But I totally relate to what you said about how it was like, I don't feel comfortable in this.
Confident.
I get that. I get that, you know, because there's things that I don't feel comfortable wearing. And as soon as you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, I can completely empathize with what that meant. Like, I get it. That clicked.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
Very
then
cool.
so then we kind of went down this path of like, okay, well, what clothing do you feel confident in? And those of you can't see me, but I'm scrunching at my face, right? Like, I don't know. So we had to go through a bit of a journey in terms of like, okay, where do we get pants that fit you? Where do we get shirts that fit you? Right. So it's like, you know, he did develop a little bit. He had a bit of hips and a butt and stuff. And it's like, okay, so can we get you pants here? Okay, maybe we can't. And so it was exploring all that stuff in terms of like, where can I get you shirts that you like that are, you know, maybe more typical button down, whatever. But then like even last summer he was wearing like dresses and stuff. And I was like, and then sometimes he would get upset because people would misgender him. And I'm like, dude, like, so he's kind of gone. They had these swings too, to your point, CeeLo, about like they wear something out of the house, and you're like, okay, I might not have predicted that, but nothing's hanging out, right? Nothing's hanging out.
Like teenage
yeah,
stuff, right? Teenage
yeah.
stuff. You made a comment when you were at the support group, and you're wondering, your biggest question is, how do I make sure I'm doing the right things to support my kid? Just the fact that you were there.
Oh yeah.
Is setting him up for success. It's setting you guys up as a family for success. Like, is it going to fix everything? No, but knowing that there's a community there where you can reach out to and you can ask the tough questions of people who are in the same shoes as you makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And the facilitator was trans as well. So that kind of, you see a successful human and you're like, okay, there's kind of a path. I can see a path forward. Not that I was like, he's never going to get a job. He's never going to have a career. He's never going to do any of this. But it was just like a small glimmer into what it could look like from that perspective. And so, it was really interesting to kind of learn, there's very little medical interventions right now that are, I'm not talking surgical. I'm talking like medication.
Testosterone.
Testosterone, Lupron, which is a hormone blocker. Like none of this stuff is irreversible, right? So the only thing we've done so far is he is taking Lupron, which is a hormone blocker. So it just pauses everything. We were trying to use birth control to stop his period because there's really he was just really distressed every time he got his period, and I completely understood that, right? I don't feel comfortable in my own body. And now my body is reminding me monthly of something that I feel like I am not.
Right.
And so thankfully, Lupron was great. It just pauses everything. It just, if it's completely 100% reversible, the minute we stop Lupron, puberty will resume. Right. So whether that happens now or it happens later or when he's 20 or whatever,
or not at all,
everything will resume. Yeah. It's just kind of like closing the gate of the dam, right? Like the water's still there. It's not going anywhere. And so that's been great. We do have an appointment with, the Sick Kids has a specialty gender clinic within the supports there. So we do have an appointment, in the not too distant future to go there and sort of start a more formalized, version of his journey, whatever that ends up being. They take a holistic approach with psychology and everything else. So we're not going to be, arbitrarily making decisions for surgery or not surgery or whatever right away.
Is there an age limit, Laura? Like, do you know?
I think Canada, because it's Sick Kids, I believe you can't be over 18. And I'm not sure how young they take kids from a referral perspective.
So sorry, the program that you are at with your son at Sick Kids takes children 18 and under
because it's Sick Kids.
Okay, got it. But for gender reassignment surgery or anything like that, is there a specific age limit, or can any
have to be an adult? I'm not sure. That I don't know about. That might be part of our discussions because he feels that he wants to make that move. I don't, but we've kind of sort of planted the seed of we're not having that discussion until you're an adult. Because that's not something you can do, lightly. And we couldn't get it done without supports anyway, right? So you can't just show up at the hospital and say, I want top surgery done, right? And I want a full mastectomy and all that kind of stuff, right? So we're not making any assumptions. He has mentioned that he would like to pursue that, but not without the sort of the holistic view, right? Is he in the right mental state? Does this make sense? Is this the support he needs? Is there other stuff we need to do? What does that look like? Et cetera, et cetera. We're not experts. The program we went through, the Central Toronto Youth Services, was great. CTYS was great. But it was just arming us with enough information to A, be knowledgeable, and B, not super freaked out and worried kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Sure.
So, I think with big life decisions, no matter what they are, you want to take your time with it. You want to marinate in a little bit, make sure that, that you're going about it the right way and the best way to support him.
Yeah.
Did you have any inkling from when he was younger?
So he asked me this. There's been a couple times where he's like, I'm so frustrated. I wish I knew this sooner. I could have stopped things sooner, and I wouldn't have developed so much and all these things. And he asked me, he's like, didn't you know? And I was like, dude, I really didn't. Like, and I still say this, like I said to him, I said, if you asked me, whatever, 5-10 years ago, whatever, who might be the one to go down this path, I said to him, I really would have always guessed your sister, because his younger sister was more of a typical tomboy, if you will. So she was interested in dinosaurs. She was interested in trucks. She was interested in superheroes. Like, she went through all of, and this is, bad stereotyping, but she had these interests that are generally more associated with boys. But with both of my kids, it was like, okay, you're interested in this today? Okay, let's go to the library. Let's get some books. Let's do some stuff. Like, I spent a lot of time with her at Reptilia in the north end of Toronto, looking at lizards and snakes. And I learned so much stuff about reptiles I never would have guessed in a million years that I would have learned.
Love it.
And we went to the museum and saw all the dinosaur bones and all that stuff. And so it's kind of, and I told him that. I said, like, because your sister was interested in these things, I might have guessed, okay, that kid. But and it's not that my oldest was like super into Barbies or super into like extra ultra girly things, but it was, he had a little I think we went through a little bit of a dinosaur and a little bit of a like cars and trucks and things, but not as deep as his younger sister went. So I really didn't have an inkling till that summer when we were thrifting and he was in the kind of the men's department, boys department, whatever. And I didn't think about it till he had that conversation with me in the car, and then light bulbs started going off. Oh, this has been happening for a little while. Oh, this was like an early indicator, etc.
Yeah, like maybe it was showing up in other ways as well. Plus, that's that age range where all of a sudden you're not going out to buy the clothes. You've got them with you, and they're what they want to have.
That's right.
Want to wear.
So and he was already starting to like. Both of them kind of got out, like they weren't in love with dress. Both of them weren't really like super interested in dresses. And so it was kind of like generic leggings and jeans and stuff. And it was sort of starting to evolve for both of them. But then, it was like a lot of like track pants and hoodies and like that sort of generic stuff anyway, right? Like it's not like we were at Justice buying stuff with like glitter and vomit and pink and stuff, right? So thankfully.
You escaped the good one there, Justice. And what was the other one we used to go to? Oh my God. Claire's for the little earrings.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. That's right. Yeah. I was going to say, though, track pants and hoodies and stuff, I mean, that's my daily attire. So.
I know.
Right?
I've never been fond of dresses anyway.
Yeah, so there you go. Yeah.
Did you bring up that one black dress I used to wear one more time?
That's true. It was such a pretty dress. I loved it.
Like the little stick people. It. I liked it because it had bicycles on it. And I wore it with those big Doc sandals anyway. So
yeah.
Still a lesbian.
Let's not stereotype.
Well, every good lesbian has to have a pair of Docs when they first come out. I think I had 3 pairs. Anyways, that's a whole other episode. What I was going to ask you about was I did find as like this generation beneath us, below us, however, the generation coming up, our kids' gen, it is so different now in terms of how they view gender and the fluidity and the ability to question or, change their names. I was talking to my daughter and I'm like, oh, I haven't heard from, Emily or whatever in a long time. How, she's still at the same school. And she's like, it's not Emily anymore. It's Basil. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so, but then like a year went by and it was back to Emily. So I do find, and I love the fact that kids are feeling comfortable to explore and figure shit out. Because there was no way in hell that was happening when I was their age. No way at all. High school would have been even more horrible than it was.
For sure. I think the one thing, thinking back to your earlier question was, the thing I mourned was the name a bit. My husband and I spent a lot of time picking his birth name, or now his dead name, I should say.
Yeah.
And so he did pick a new name that was inspired by his birth name or dead name. So that was I was glad he kept the inspiration behind it.
Yeah.
He was originally named after two grandparents, and we kind of cut the names and sort of put them together.
Nice.
And then he took the inspiration from just my grandfather's name. So so that was great. But so there was a little bit of that, and then after he came out as him, he was okay with his dead name for a while, and then I think by the summer it was like, no, I don't like.
Doesn't fit.
It doesn't fit. Yeah. And then the new name piece was like, okay, here we go again. And that took a while. We started to get really good with the pronoun piece, so that was easier.
Yeah.
And then we got the curveball with the name, so we were like, okay. But
so you mentioned dead name though, and it would be, it would be good to talk a little bit about, just to educate people on what that is. What is the
So a dead name is when a person transitions, and in this case, I'll clarify that Kai has transitioned socially. So he's so there's nothing, there's been no physical modification kind of thing. So when they say you socially transition, it's your appearance, it's your pronouns, it's how you dress, it's how you present yourself to the world.
Yeah.
So we've made that transition, and then I forgot your question, CeeLo. Sorry. I was trying to educate and then got lost.
I'm here learning to be on our episode of I Feel Old. You just forgot.
Totally right. I
didn't go to a different room yet that I can't remember why I went to. So
yeah, that's right.
Because you mentioned the term dead name, I had said.
Oh, right, dead name. Yeah. So he socially transitioned, and then he wanted to be known by a new name, so we had to get kind of used to that. So the name prior to that is technically it's their birth name, but it's referred to as their dead name, because if somebody comes to work, if Basil comes to school and says, "I'm Basil, I'm not Emily," you don't want to call them Emily, because that's sort of considered their dead name. It's their old identity. It's something they don't connect with anymore. It's not the person they are anymore.
Yeah.
So you want to make every effort to not only respect and use that person's preferred pronouns, but you also want to make every effort to use that person's name. So like, if sometimes people get my name wrong and they call me Lara. Oh, sorry, my name is Lara. They call me Laura or Lori or, some variation, right? So if you don't like your name being inaccurate, like, and now you identify with a different name, you don't want to be called by that old name, right? So, so it's really important. Like, those are two really inclusive actions that you can take with a colleague or a friend or a family member to use their preferred pronouns, and make every effort to do that. Don't think about it as being inconvenient, or don't think about it as being like, do I have to? Yes, you have to.
Yeah.
If you want to be accepting of that person and you want to have a good relationship with that person, go with the flow. If they dye their hair purple tomorrow, great. Your hair's purple. Your pronoun is this. Fantastic. Your name is X or Y or whatever you choose. Fantastic. Go with the flow.
Yeah.
It's kind of like letting go of those judgments or those prejudices or those, learnings, if you will, that life must be a certain way and people must behave a certain way and look a certain way. And, life has changed. Times have changed. I mean, we talk about, well, CeeLo, you made a comment about how amazing it is that, in this day and age, there's so much out there and so much more acceptance and understanding. I can tell you, I went to school for early childhood education. So it was learning about the developing mind of a child, all the way up to, the age of 14 at this point. And not in one textbook, in any of the psychology courses that I had to take, or any of the, how brains develop and all that other stuff, nothing was ever taught to me about this, ever. And so that was in the 90s, right? So, it's
early 90s.
We don't have to go that far there, CeeLo. But I'm just saying, it's not that long ago. No. And if you think about the age that we're at right now for CeeLo and I, you know, we were brought up still. So it's really like CeeLo's generation, a kids generation,
Yeah.
that are going to start having this better view and better acceptance of what the older generation would consider abnormal.
Yeah.
Laura, there's one thing I wanted to mention to you, and it's just you know, because I was doing a little bit of reading before we actually met with you today. And, you know, I'm so glad that we're doing this because you're really providing a lot of education on just this topic, but mostly on how to navigate your own reaction for someone who has come to you to say, you know, this is who I believe that I am. And one of the things that I remember reading when I was doing a bit of research was that LGBTQ children who are basically rejected or cut off from family support when they go and like turn to their family for assistance and support, when they're cut off, they're more likely to experience physical and mental health problems. And the majority of them tend to experience suicide, violence, bullying, drug and substance abuse because they don't have a support system. They're left to navigate this by themselves. And 81% in a study that was done, it was one of the largest transgender surveys to date that was done. 81.7 transgendered individuals who had been surveyed said that when they were cut off from family support, 81.7% seriously contemplated suicide. And 48% of them did commit suicide. So those stats are pretty. So the information that I have is 40.4% attempted suicide in their lifetime. 48% had done it. Yeah.
Wow.
So, but those are individuals who had been, you know, cut off and had communicated that they felt suicidal. I'm just kind of reiterating that because of the importance of when you can't express who you are and when you are forced to feel like something you're not, it has such debilitating and detrimental effects to your psyche. And I don't think people realize that. I think they're just too caught up sometimes in social norms, and that has to change.
Absolutely. Like even if you look at the, you know, lesbian, gay, bisexual, like, you know, the I'll say finger quotes, historically known segment of that diversity spectrum, right? Like you're in a partnered relationship with a same-sex partner and you can't talk about your weekend at work, right? How does that, you're constantly feeling guarded, you can't be authentic, you're kind of leaving half of your life on the, like, at home, right? Like, and there's people who choose to be relatively private and not talk about their weekends and stuff, but to not feel safe to do so, to worry about repercussions, to worry about losing your job, to worry about how people will perceive you, et cetera, right? So those are barriers, I think, that are still being broken down in many companies, societies, groups, et cetera. And so, this group of young people coming up who are very inclusive of gender, who don't, you can love whoever you want. You can be attracted to whoever you want. They kind of don't care. Like it's not a thing for them, which is really interesting to me. But to your point, like if they're not supported by their family, if they're not supported by their friends, it's hard to get through difficult things without support of family and friends. Even just difficult things. My job is difficult. The medical challenge I'm going through is difficult, right? Like whatever you're going through that's difficult, never mind identity based. Right.
Yeah.
And we know teenagers are kind of confused for a few years anyway, right? Like what kind of person am I? What clique do I belong with? What group do I feel comfortable with? What is my authentic self? I don't think you really figure that out till you're in like your early 20s anyway, kind of thing, right?
The teenage years I referred to as the practice years. You get to practice all of the different things to figure out who you are going to be when you're an adult, right? But I mean, the stats, I still have goosebumps. Like I'm still have chills.
I know, it's sad.
I can't even.
It's sad.
But it's
really sad.
Anyone out there that's that's listening and has a kid in the same situation or thinks they might have a kid in the same
Mm.
situation, you're not going to have all the answers. You're not going to know what to do. You're going to be driving in the car with the same reaction of, okay, I don't even know what
What
to
the
say.
shit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the heck do I do with this? Yeah.
Part is that you stay, right? You don't abandon them. You don't tell them they're not loved, and you stay and you
Yeah.
figure it out together, right?
Yeah.
And I think the key thing that I'm taking away a little bit from the beginning of our conversation was, and I think, Laura, I think you were the one who said it, lead with empathy and curiosity.
Mhm.
And I think if you can kind of remind yourself to lead with those two things in all circumstances, you'll probably get to a better outcome all around.
Absolutely.
Right?
And,
Yeah.
and I,
Yeah. Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Sila.
I was going to say in every situation, really, like that applies
Yeah.
across the board, but
Yeah.
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 For me, I think some of the scary thing is, and I think it's the conversations died down a little bit, but like earlier in the school year and last year, some of the conversations about parental rights and gender, pronouns at school, and parents absolutely having to be like, I need to know this, or not giving kids the ability to explore without their parents' permission. And referring back to those stats, right? Like it's just it's there's some conflict and some issues there. And I think, I completely understand where parents are coming from I want to know what's going on with my kid perspective, but kids hold back going to their parents for different reasons, right?
Sure.
Well,
Yeah.
It could be because they're absolutely petrified that their parents are going to get angry, kick them out, yell at them, et cetera, or they don't know what to expect. They want to get more comfortable before they come to their parents, right? They want to have that bit of comfort before they come out, because no kid wants to be alienated, isolated, disliked, abused, whatever from their parents. No kid wants negative from their parents, on either side, right? Like sometimes,
Yeah.
not every parent is always the best parent.
Yeah.
And no parent is perfect. But I think, some of that conversation was very disturbing for us. We're listening to the news and hearing some of the dialogue happening on the East Coast, happening in the prairies. And we're just like, holy crap. Like what the heck? Like, are they coming for my kid next? Right? Like, are they, and so I really, really genuinely feel for parents who are like, I have a right to know what's going on with my kid. You absolutely do. But your kid isn't telling you for a reason. They want to feel more comfortable. They want to make sure that they feel like they're in the right space, and that hopefully you'll support them. And I think that's where the empathy and curiosity comes in, because you don't need to understand what the heck is going on with them. You just kind of need to understand, how can I support you? What would be helpful to you, right? Like,
yeah.
Regardless of what your kid is going through, if your kid is queer, if they're gender diverse, if they have a different mental health condition, or maybe your kid has kind of something else going on for them, right? Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to appreciate everything that they want to do or love, but as long as they're not hurting anybody, right? Like, what's going on for them? How can you help them and support them?
And there's lots of little things that happen at school that I'm sure I'm not informed about.
Absolutely.
But you had said earlier that you found out that he was already using different pronouns at school, and that the TDSB was really good at kind of accommodating the changes as it was happening. And did you have any feeling of, well, why didn't he tell me? Like,
for sure I did. Yeah.
that,
Like,
right?
in hindsight, looking back, I was like, I was internally, I was like, why didn't he tell us sooner? Like, I didn't realize he'd already been exploring this. But then in hindsight, to your point, like, reflecting back to myself as I was as a preteen and teenager, like young teenager, never mind high school, was like, I don't know what's going on for me, right? Like, I was trying to figure out who I was. Like, grade 7 and grade 8 were so painful. Like, I remember grade 7 and 8 being so painful for me, like, just in terms of like figuring out what kids I could be comfortable with, who could I hang out with, right? Like, grade 9 got better. I feel like high school was a lot better, but those middle school years were terrible. Yeah. And I think, part of the challenge of the school he was in is it's a smaller school. So there wasn't like, K to 8 kids he could hang out with, right? It was just these 2 grades that were kind of together. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit, the social dynamic is a little bit different. I think initially I was like, yeah, I wish you would have come to me sooner. But I kind of also, in my brain, I was like, I wish you came to me sooner. But then I was kind of also the other mind of like, yeah, I kind of know why you waited, right?
Yeah. I think
Right.
I feel like that no matter what the news was.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, did you encounter any negative, negativity when you were kind of going through this journey? I mean, you know, I can't imagine that every doctor that you visited was, on board or on side, or every family member. I know that you mentioned that some family members had some issues initially
Yeah.
accepting, but yeah, like what were some of your
Yes,
challenges
I
that
think,
you?
yeah, definitely there were a couple family members who were kind of
Mm,
like, "What? Like,
yeah,
they want to be called what and why?" And just the whole kind of trying to wrap their brain around why would a person make this change, right? Like, what was wrong with what was going on before? Why are they changing this now? What caused this? What was sort of the cat, like, what happened? And so there was some of that. There was a couple family members who it was just like that. We had some of that resistance, and it's still not 100% yet, but for the most part, knock on wood, I really have to say pretty much everybody's been okay. We've had a couple
good.
doctors like I have to
Hmm.
call it because especially because there's one provider like there was a doctor he only sees every couple of years for a follow up to something, so I had to call ahead, make sure they were aware, like this is their name, these are their pronouns, blah blah blah. Pretty much all the doctors have been pretty good. Um, Even like initially when my husband and I got together, I didn't take his last name, and people were like, oh, the doctors are going to be confused. And from when the kids were little, it's like, does your husband have the same last name as you? Do your children have the same
Yeah.
last name as you? So I feel like the doctors were a little bit ahead of us from that regard. The preferred name piece has been a little bit tricky because it's like not every doctor's system has a space for a preferred name, or like unless you legally change their name, it's like they have to kind of figure out where they can. Their legal
Use
name
it.
is this, but they don't
Yeah.
want to be called that. That's their dead name. So it's like where in their system do they put
Yeah.
this new name? So there's been a little bit of like some slight hiccups with that, but there's never been any physician who or any other person sort of in our support sphere at school or medical or whatever who's like, no, I refuse to do
Good.
this, or that's
Yeah.
unacceptable, or heck no, that's got to go. Like none of those attitudes, thankfully. Um,
Hmm.
I feel like maybe this isn't the first time this is happening in these spaces. So
Right.
in some ways now as a parent, I'm benefiting from other people's previous experience, right? Like,
Yeah.
is this what it looked like 5 to 10 years ago? Probably, maybe 5, probably not 10.
Yeah.
Um, and so I really feel like we're kind of in a better spot where medical field is kind of like, yep, this isn't the first time we've been through this rodeo.
Hmm.
Teachers, especially in the public board, not the first time we've been in this rodeo. So we've kind of benefited from some of that. And then
Hmm.
just on the family piece, there's been a couple of bumps in the road, and but even with our religious community, our synagogue was really great. Kai was
I'm surprised to hear that, quite frankly, but I think that's fantastic,
So we go to
Yeah.
we go to a Reform synagogue,
Hmm.
which is sort of for those who don't know Judaism, it's sort of like the United. If my rabbi hears this, I hope she.
United Church of
Yeah, I don't. I hope her hair
Yeah.
doesn't curl, but yeah. So it's kind of like the closest thing to a United Church version. So
Hmm.
there's like 30% of the families in my congregation are mixed families, i.e., not both parts of the couple are Jewish.
Hmm.
They're openly accepting of LGBTQIA 2S members.
Hmm.
So there's acceptance there. There's the leadership is female. So when Kai was going towards his, it was at that time we were working with them, they. So instead of bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, there's a plural, which is b'nai mitzvah, which they use
Oh,
for either like twins where you have a boy and girl, or they'll use it for them, they. So that was like, okay, he's having a b'nai mitzvah, not a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah. And then once it transitioned, before the event happened, I sent out invites, and it was this plural term. And then as he identified as he, him, I had to kind of email everybody and be like, okay, now it's actually a bar mitzvah. And there wasn't really much material difference, but except if anybody was looking for a card to, to wish him well, it made card shopping a little bit easier. But yeah, the congregation's been they didn't really blink an eye. They were cool with the pronoun changes. They were cool with the name changes. Like, it's been awesome. Really nice. Like we've been really fortunate. I know not everybody has that experience with their religious communities. This is kind of the congregation we joined when the kids were, when my oldest was still a baby. So so it's been really good. They've been really supportive and open.
That's good.
So yeah, it is. So Laura, so where do you go from here then at this point? So what's on the near future horizon for you and your son?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my son has a couple other diagnoses that make sort of life a little bit difficult. I feel like in some ways the transgender piece is, and I say with finger quotations, the easy piece. Like the dysphoria happens, right? Like there's some days where he's not happy with himself. He doesn't like the way he looks. He doesn't like, I think we sometimes have those days, but for him, it's, obviously more intense. So we're trying to support him through those other challenges right now. But I think, with the appointment, coming up in the next while with sick kids will be interesting. I think we're all kind of open to the journey and hopefully receiving kind of this wraparound care in terms of like, what is the right path? How do we best support him? What does that look like medically, psychologically, socially, all those pieces? And so just sort of like, how do we continue through high school? Kind of what does that look like? And then just, I've just kind of gotten better at like, we're going to take it a day at a time. We're going to take it a week at a time. We're going to take it an hour at a time.
Yeah, perfect.
But I kind of feel like the transgender piece is in some ways the easier piece, but it's not 100% easy, right? Like, he sometimes gets misgendered. He doesn't have like atypical, like, or if he's not wearing specifically like boyish clothing or, like he's not wearing whatever, like, and people look for those social cues, right? Like, how do I refer to you? I don't think we're all open to saying, hey, what are your pronouns? We're at a restaurant and, sometimes I'll just jump in and be like, my son will have, and sometimes I kind of see the waiter's face is like, or, the wait staff's face is kind of like computing, like they're like that. Okay. I wouldn't have guessed that. But nobody, they just like, no problem, whatever. Right. Like nobody has any issues with that. So I think the next few months will be really kind of telling for him in terms of what's next, what sort of, we haven't really had any perspective in terms of a long-term horizon in terms of like, yes, it makes sense for him to have top surgery. And what that means, if anybody's asking, is that's sort of the loose term for it. I don't know if it's exactly called a mastectomy where they remove the breasts and they do kind of nipple reconstruction and all that stuff. So, people call it top surgery because that's sort of the part of the body that is being surgically altered, right?
Yeah.
And then people kind of refer to surgery on the lower half to be quote unquote bottom surgery. I'm sure there's better terms for it. I'm sort of using the kind of the common vernacular, but we're absolutely not jumping into any of those types of decisions lightly. And, we want to make sure we're supporting him, but also recognizing that we might need more runway before we can do some of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think really between the program we went through Central Toronto Youth Services and just kind of being along on this ride, as you too probably, CeeLo, as a parent of a teen, you kind of just go with the flow, hopefully, and continue to love and support your kid. And you wake up some days and you're just like, well, I don't think my husband and I expected this, right? Like, or my partner and I, right? Like I think you have kids and you kind of hope for the best, but you don't expect some of these
you hope for the best
to
you
layer
love
in
them, you cross your fingers.
Sometimes you try to give them up for adoption.
Only once I did that, man. You never let me live that down.
Yeah.
Well, I've got some fun facts here, which I think would be just like, I'll just kind of talk about it really quickly. But
Absolutely.
I know that we have, throughout all of history, this is nothing new, right? This has been around forever. And I think people forget that. There was actually a Roman emperor back in, I think it was Italy. And in the year 217. So that's how long ago it was. This Roman emperor Elagabalus, he was married 5 different times to both men and women. He was cited as an example of early person with possible transgender or gender fluid identity. He was consistently seen in court wearing women's cosmetics and women's dress. And he had offered a very large amount of money to any doctor back in that day who could surgically equip him with female genitalia.
Interesting.
So,
well,
yeah,
you know, like
217.
that was 217. Like
Yep.
indigenous peoples, the 2S in LGBTQS is two spirit, and that's the gender fluidity of the indigenous people, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
absolutely.
believe two-spirited people have been in East Indian culture for a very, very long time as well, and
Yeah.
they've been even revered. So,
yeah,
yeah.
Like looked up, to,
amazing.
revered, exactly.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Sela's like, yeah, you said it.
so
Laura, this was.
I would just want to say,
amazing.
like, if anybody, if anybody's, curious, not sure, like, there's a ton of online resources. You can go to PFLAG. They have a ton of resources. If you're at a medium to large company, they might have some employee resource groups. I would say, I say this of my own employer, join kind of all the resource groups, because you don't have to identify as a member of that group to be an ally. And everybody's looking for allies, whether you identify as a person with a disability, you identify as being on the 2S LGBTQIA spectrum, you identify as a person of a diverse background, culturally, ethnically, globally, whatever, right? So I would say just be open and kind, and just try to accept people for the way they want to be accepted. You don't necessarily have to understand it. I know I even still have conversations with people in my own family where it's like, I just don't get it. I'm like, you kind of don't have to get it, right? Like, I don't entirely get it either. It's not my experience. It's my kid's experience, right? So, so just do your best to be kind as you would to any other person. And, whether they look male or look female or something in between, or you can't figure it out, don't worry about it. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
For people.
Yeah, it's so true. Some of those resources I'd love to include in the show description.
Yeah, I'll get you some links. Yeah, that's
that'd
great.
be great.
Good. Lead with curiosity and empathy. I just love that so much.
Yeah.
Laura, thank you for educating us.
Thanks
I really do appreciate
It's
that.
been a pleasure.
Yeah, it was a real pleasure. And keep in touch with how this goes on for both of you, and how your son navigates this as he gets older.
Yeah, absolutely. The next few months will be
wish you the
interesting.
best.
So we'll knock on wood. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks so much, Laura.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for taking a seat at the table today. We love our dinner guests.
Don't forget to subscribe and follow The Dinner Agenda on the podcast platform you use so that you don't miss any new episodes. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Dinner Agenda.
We look forward to hearing your comments, questions, and even ideas you may have on future episodes.
Thanks for taking this journey with us.